computer. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of some of the pencil marks and the extra lead on my paper by using the kneadable eraser. Okay. And then we're going to mix up our background color. Out of the greens that we've chosen and the reds, you probably still have a little bit still on your palette. But I'm going to take this green that I have, and I'm going to take some of this red. Now it's a bit brown. I want a bit more blue in there. Still a bit brown. Still a bit brown. So right now it's kind of a warm gray, but it probably needs more. And if it starts to look green, then you've probably gone a bit too far on that angle and need to add a tiny bit of red back. The other thing you can do to simplify the process is to just take ultramarine or cobalt, because you could have some warm grays in there as well as some cool grays. And then take a bit of burnt sienna and add that to the ultramarine or cobalt, and it creates a cool gray. So this one has a bit more blue in it. And this one is a bit more warm. And that's always a good idea for a background, is to kind of vary the colors that you're going to use in your background. So get those two puddles mixed. You're going to need a fair amount of paint. Going here. A little bit more to this one. Okay, so that's my warm gray. I'm adding a bit more water to it because I don't want it to be too strong. All that green in, throw this in. Sometimes it's a good idea just to use whatever you got left on your palette there. Okay, so that's our mix. And then, oh, I guess that was dirty. Some clean. So now I'm going to I'm just going to wet the front this time, because if we wet both sides, we won't be able to start the rest of our painting. We're going to go through almost everything here with the water. And this might curl up, so if you don't have it taped down, you might have to tape it down. It's okay. Didn't miss a spot. And then basically, we're not going to worry about whether we go in go around the outside and you can alternate from one gray to the next. And you can also leave some spots. If down over here, there's some of those really light greens. So you don't have to have that part covered. And it's a bit darker on this side of the, it's almost like the light is coming from here. So that's the other thing, is you can just decide where your light is coming from. And leave out these greens that are really light, or just leave a spot there. Another little trick you can do when you're doing this is take a brush, dab it off. You know how sometimes you see these circles in the background? And the light is hitting a certain way. You can do that if you like. Just to give it some different texture. Okay. This part I'm just wiping out a little bit. So it's a bit lighter. Okay. And then I'm dabbing off in the middle here because I may not want to wait until my paper is completely dry to start painting my flowers. Now the other consideration here is, what is your focal point? This flower here is right in the middle, but it probably is our focal point. And this might be secondary. And the leaves associated with that might be secondary. So this one has to be the most well-defined, and the other ones could even be blurred out into the background. Especially these two at the end. I'm not sure if I like the shape of those. So while the paper is still wet, we could just look at, making those kind of fuzzy in the background. So I'm now going to mix up some of our reds. I'm cleaning all those grays out of my palette. And I want a variety of reds. We'll start with the reds and then we'll move to the greens. Okay. So I need a clean brush. And we decided we liked the mixture of the Quin Rose with the Pyro Red. And I would say that we should probably have a fairly good puddle of that as well. Okay. That's going to be our main color. And that one's a pretty thick mixture. Okay, and then for the shadow of that, I chose indigo at first, but I didn't really like the way that looked. So it might be a better idea to kind of go with a neutral. I'm out of blues in almost every one of my palettes. Look at that. Using a lot of blues lately. I'm going to try taking some of this and just making it darker. What I used there was the ultramarine. It's almost turning purple, but when I look at the picture, I don't see as much purple in there. It's a very rich red, though.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is to maybe just take the combination we were using here of the Quin Rose and the Pyro, but add a lot more water to it. Okay, so this is our light. This is our medium. And this is our dark. I think that might work.
Looks good.
Okay. All right. I'm going to put my reference photo right beside me so I can see it and zoom in. So since this one is our primary flower, the first decision is, you know, we could do all of the red in light and then come back and do the darker spots as a second layer, which might not be a bad idea. Then we would identify all our reds just with this very light red. By the time we've got all those in, we're probably ready to come back and do the other ones. So let's try that. So I'm going to start right at the top where possibly this is still a bit damp and might be fuzzy. These are not my favorite branches. If I didn't erase my pencil lines, we could always fuzz those out if we wanted to. But let's just get them all in the lighter colors. There is some other leaves in front of these, but we can just do all the lights first and then work on darkening these up. So I'm just identifying where I want the leaves to be the lightest. Probably should have erased these pencil marks because they really are showing up. So we're going to paint all our reds. That's our plan. In the light color, and then we'll come back and darken them up where we think they need to be dark. And this one goes right into the center, or those stamens, or whatever they're called. Okay. And then this one is kind of, I guess it just goes around. And there's a few flowers in front of that as well, but we're just going to ignore that for now. Behind these flowers, there's some real darks. But I'm gonna leave those blank for now because we'll do the darks at the very end. That one went on a little bit darker. But that's okay because that's part of our main flower, and I don't really mind if it's darker. If you ever watched Louise DeMasi paint,
Yeah.
she paints every petal individually
Wow.
and then blends them out.
Are the flowers now pretty well dried? I know you watered, you wet it down out the beginning, but do they still have some moisture on the paper itself?
Yes, a little bit, but remember I took a paper towel and I dabbed the center.
Right. So basically it's closer to dry than to
Yeah,
the
so it's
the
not
moisture's in the paint itself that you're
correct.
I hope I'm not asking silly questions.
No, that is a good question because everyone's paper could be different too.
Yeah.
Depending on how much you wet it, the type of paper. Okay. So this method is one that Andy Evanson always uses. He does all his lights first, then comes back with his mid-tones, and then comes back with his darkest darks. Okay, I'm getting low in my red paint. Okay. Adding a bit more water to the mixture. As I go towards the outside, it's not, and some of these leaves, it's hard to figure out what shape they really are, like this one here. It's kind of a weird shape. It's okay if it's not as bright as the other ones. You don't want to draw too much attention to it. You notice when you lift up your paintbrush, it leaves the darkest spot there. So sometimes when you're at the very end of a flower, or a petal here, it leaves a bit of dark, which is just something to be aware of, that if there's a darker spot, you may want to approach it from a different angle. And this one, some of the gray ran into it, and that's just fine. This one's very light, this one under here. And then it's very dark right under here. So I'm just gonna do this part so that I remember when I come back to that, it's lighter than even what we're putting on right now. There's one in front of it. I'm just gonna go like that. That's that one. Sometimes it's hard because you lose your spot trying to figure out what you're looking at. Because there was a gap in there, but I think it's right in that spot there. And I guess I should have done this part as well. I never did. Here. Comes out here. These I didn't do the first time around. I'm not sure why. Ah, I see why. The drawing that one doesn't show up the way it should have. Very confusing on this part. Looks like this. And that one's green.
Mhm.
Spots. If you miss some of these, it really doesn't matter. Once you've got the main flowers in, if there's, you know, like this spot here was the ribbon, we don't really need that. Some of these, it's good to have some of these white spaces. And then we'll go back where the darkest darks are. And we'll do that by using the black and white diagram. So I want to know where those darks are next. And if they're dark red, we can fill them in, as an example right here. We can fill in those dark red spots. And that will help us as we move forward, figuring out what's where. And this variation, like some of these are lighter, some of them are darker, that's good. There's some of them might be catching the light a certain way. So let me know when you're ready. I think the color looks okay.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
Mine is totally different. But
Yeah.
that's yeah. Okay.
I might have to fill up my blues. Maybe I'll do that now.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, my leaves are in.
Okay. All right. Rain. It's difficult when you fill your palette with fresh paint, and then you go in and you pick up a huge glob of it. Before, but I think we'll be okay. Okay. so our next step, is everyone ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Anyone else ready?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we usually go light, mid-tone, dark, but I wouldn't mind just putting a layer of our darks in because I think it's going to be easier to see where you want to go next. So we're going to try that. My palette at the bottom here, or maybe here. So what we're looking for is on the black and white reference, where are these darkest spots? And we're going to take the red that we mixed earlier, that had the two reds and ultramarine in it, and we're going to use that. I'm just going to get a little bit more. I don't think we need that much, but ultramarine. It's a good thick mixture there as well. And then taking this reference, we know that this spot right here is mainly the dark.
Okay.
And at this point, it can help you shape some of those leaves as well, because at this stage, when you put this dark in, that's what you're doing. You're defining the leaves. And you won't really get another chance to do that. So just make sure you're getting what you want. It has some of these ridges in it. So I'm adding those in. And then this. This one has a little curl on the end, but I'm not sure if we'll be able to get that in. Maybe. Okay, there's one.
Mm-hmm.
We better go down this way because we don't want to put our hand in anything.
Okay.
This one can always turn our paper around, but this only goes part way because the stem. Oh, this was green. I wasn't looking at my other, well, now it's red. Okay, next darkest spot in red appears to be here, which is right under this thing. And actually this leaf here was green. I don't think anyone's going to notice if we have that wrong. There is a triangle too in this part. Okay, so next dark red, will be right over here. It goes under there. And at this point, we're just painting shapes. We get the shapes that are in there. Okay, next dark red. Well, this one that's sticking up is not a bad one to do. And it will help define the really light one that's underneath there. Okay. There is some above here too. So this one. There's another leaf in there, but I think the petal. I think we can leave that out and make that just one. And then up here, this whole thing. Is dark red. Bit more paint. Some here. If it runs into here, the leaf is getting brighter. So what you could do is just soften this edge. Dabbing off on a paper towel. And that way, when you're ready to do the graduation of that one, it's going to show up okay. And then over here, we have some dark. It's like a V shape in a way there. Part of the leaf again. Like this. And then we're going to do the same thing we did before. When you're softening, the trick is to start out here and gradually go in and just touch the edge. And the benefit of that is it's going to spread itself, soften the edge without spreading out too far. Because the rest of this is really part of this leaf here. I'm just going to wet the rest of this leaf and help that blend in. Okay, so we did that. What we didn't do was any dark over there, but I don't think that's necessarily dark enough. This one leaf is quite dark. It is above that. There's the green leaf. And then above that, there's one that really hard to figure out.
Let's see.
Yeah. We can just kind of improvise there. I think we'll just make this dark here. Make sure I'm looking at the right spot. So green leaf, that is this leaf. I might have labeled that wrong. So when I look at it, it's not matching what I want it to match, but let's do this one because we know that this is really dark red. And this helps define this edge. So this is what they call negative painting. When in order to paint this light edge, you're painting the dark edge to define it. Okay. That part underneath there. Now this is making more sense once we put that on. It's easier to understand that this part here is darker. But the rest of this should have been light. So we can just apply some water there. And blend that down. So this part is in shadow from that other leaf. Not necessarily the best shape, but it'll do. And then this one helps define the green leaf. And then underneath the green leaf is another red part. We might leave that out though. Sometimes I find if you don't know where that petal came from, probably not necessary to put it in. And there's a couple behind this one. Which again, this isn't quite how this goes, but that's how I'm doing it. Just don't have them see the reference photo. I might even have this one come over a little bit. That leaf is right behind that one. Okay, and then a couple I put a G on this one, but this is actually a red petal. That one there. And I'm going to use the dark on that one too. Okay. Question is, did we get them all?
Mm.
There's a lot of space in this part. The green's going to come there. I think it's because there was a bit darker behind here. It's almost like there's a couple of branches there. And then this one was smaller. So I might do some dark in there, just even though it's not in the photo, we're going to put that there. Too much white space in that area. Yes. Okay. How's that working for everybody?
It's red, but it doesn't quite look like yours.
Is that what? Why do you think that is, Sonia?
Your petals are more defined somehow. I
Okay.
see more of a petal in there, maybe because I can still see some of the pencil marks, and I didn't put any of the little veins in there.
Right.
So maybe once I do that, it'll be better. I don't know.
Yeah, and what if you need to define a leaf? Let me see. Where's a good example? You can always define it more by putting a dark green around it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's switch to our greens and basically do the same thing, and then we'll have a single layer of reds and greens.
Yeah.
And from there, we can go into the detail.
Okay.
Okay, so let's have a look again at a reference photo in our, so it looks like the greens are here, but unfortunately I did that one red. Although it does have a reddy tinge to it, doesn't it? This looks like a leaf to me,
Yeah.
but it's very red in the photo. So we
I
might,
think that is red.
yeah, you think so?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is erase all my G's that I put in here. Oops. Losing it. Taking this in. Not the best eraser. Where's my other little eraser? This eraser is called a Tombow eraser. And a mono zero eraser. So if you have to erase something very fine, and then you just push on it and the eraser comes out, they sell them on Amazon. I think they have them at Michael's as well. But for whatever reason, the pencil I used here does not want to come out too well. It might be because I wet this area too.
Oh, yeah.
When you wet the paper, you activate the sizing. So the only other way of getting that out at this stage is to get a scrubber brush and try to scrub it out. But if you're too aggressive, what ends up happening is you kind of rough up your paper. So maybe we'll just try to keep our greens somewhat dark. Okay, I'm off kilter here. There we go. Okay, so greens. What decisions did we make on our greens? We needed a lighter green. Let me use a different palette for my greens because I want to keep those reds. Okay, so I have hookers. I might use hookers. But I'm going to try first the ultramarine and gamboge because I think that's what we decided would work well. So I'm going to be careful picking up my ultramarine. Whoa, that's why you have to be careful. That's a very nice green. I like that green. Probably need a lighter one. Let's try to put a lighter one here too. Might even add a little bit of Hansa to that one. Okay. And then let's try cobalt. I know if I mix cobalt and Hansa, I get a really, really light green. Try that. Some of the greens are super light though, aren't they? That one to me looks muddy. to do the lighter green, I think you have to use Hansa, not gamboge.
Okay.
I'm not getting the color I wanted there. That one's not bad.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to go change my water because it's very dirty. Okay. Now this sap or hooker's green with ultramarine makes a nice green as well. It's not as muddy as these ones over here.
Right.
So if you have that, that could work too. And we're going to start with our lightest greens. So that is the Hansa. And the cobalt, I think it was. So the lightest greens are over on this side. On this branch here. I'm just trying to identify that. We're probably going to go back with some different colors in there, but it helps to know where that is. And then behind that, this is light green. So it come all the way down there. And it goes back behind this branch. This is all light green. Let's go fold over here. And then the only other light green I see is way over here. So it's almost like this must be backlit. And I took out the bow, so it's just that part. We made it go all the way over. And I guess there's some light green down here. Not on this big leaf, but this little leaf that's sticking out. But I painted that red. Look at that. Okay. So the rest is all more of a darker green. And we're doing this in layers, so we will. This one is one leaf over top of another. And I gotta switch brushes. That's that part. Yeah, I'm just gonna identify this first with a lighter color. It's kind of hard to see if we did it in the same color. And it looks like that one goes behind.
Okay.
And then there's a gap here. There is one leaf behind there, but I think we'll just leave that out. And there's some ribbon in here, but we're going to ignore that. We'll have to figure out. Down there, it would probably be darker. We could put a darker leaf right in this part here. And I added a leaf from the reference photo. It wasn't there before. And that's this one here. And this one would be darker, but we'll go in with the dark when we go around the second time. Okay. I'm running out of paint. Quite a bit darker now, so maybe I will fill that in. And this one is quite dark as well. I'm going to extend it over a little bit. So we can fill in that gap. Looks like there's a red flower underneath this leaf. This was the one I messed up. So I might just make that, I'm gonna put some green on top of that. All right. There's actually 2 leaves there. I'm going back to my lighter green. Although that I should wait because this is still quite wet. But I'll just leave a little border. It's not exactly as pictured. But we did it anyway. And then that was a bit darker up here. Whenever I'm painting, I'm resting my baby finger on the paper. Okay, what else do we have to do? I think maybe here this needs some more green. If I look at it, I think this is not dark enough here. So I'm just gonna add some green over top of that red. Do the same over here. These spots that we put the red in, some of them could be darker. So while we got the green out, just doing that. Here there's some green, but I did that red. Okay. This flower here is super dark, or leaf, or whatever it is. It is red. But we're going to do the shading on the red, and then we're going to do the shading on the green as we go around. I'm just trying to think whether we should tackle the vase next. What color do you think we should do with that? We could stick with the color that it is, or we could try to do what's called a triad. So we have red and green, and with a triad, basically let's see if I have some sort of triangle here. With the triad, what you do is, okay, I've got red and green, and it says I could do yellow, or I could do a purplish color, or I could try to do it white in the picture, which has a lot of gray in it, and we could make the gray lean towards purple if we wanted to.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. So we'll do the first layer of that. I think it's helpful to soften a few areas because there is some of this white here that we want some of that light to show up. And we don't really want hard edges there. So we don't want to wet it too much. I'm just trying to think of the best strategy.
You wouldn't mask any of it, would you?
No, I'm not a big fan of masking. I find it kind of leaves very hard edges.
And then you can't get rid of it.
Yeah. What we could do is kind of do it in stripes, and after each stripe, soften. Stripe, soften, stripe, soften. And then we mix a couple of grays, maybe the grays we used originally, if you still have them in your palette.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's see, I'm running out of mixing spaces. I do have one other palette here. It's a real mess. Try that. So, one of the challenges of introducing a new color into this is it's going to throw things off. There's no longer going to be harmony. So it's a good idea to start with the colors you've already used. So I'm putting the light green in. I'm going to put the dark purple. The dark, when we mix the two reds with the ultramarine. I'm going to put that in. And maybe a bit more red. And then some ultramarine. Now it's kind of leaning a bit more towards a cool color. More ultramarine. Now it's leaning closer to the purple. Ultramarine. A bit more red. Okay. It's not bad. On my camera, it's looking very gray, whereas I see it a little purple on this one. And then we'll try again. This one is kind of cool, so we'll try to warm it up a bit. So maybe a bit more of the other red, not the one where we mixed it with the ultramarine. Pretty red, and we don't really want it to go brown, so that's one of the challenges. Not be bad. Okay, that one's, so those are the two colors we've mixed. We could try a bit of burnt sienna.
Okay.
Just in a separate, what we get with that. So let's see. I'm gonna test it on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
We have, that's almost brown. That's purpley gray. And that's a reddy gray.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What do you
Which
think?
middle?
Let's give it a shot. So the warmer colors are probably closer to the light, if we say the light's coming this way, and the cooler colors would be over there.
Okay.
So the first thing I would say is right along here, it almost has a white tinge. So make sure you have clean water and just put water down there. And then we said this is where the cooler is going to go. So I'm just going to throw that in like that. And actually the shape kind of is like this, isn't it? Okay, and then I'm going to soften that edge. Oh, it does kind of curve this way. I've got the curve wrong. I soften that edge just with water. Not worried too much on what's happening down here. And then some more water, and I'm going to leave that white gap there. Not too much water.
Okay.
So I'm rubbing it off. And let's do it again. This goes right up into here, and I'd probably be pretty dark as you get up there. think my shape's a bit off here. So I'm just dropping some of this darker color right in the middle of that.
Okay.
Yeah. And then just soften out this edge. All under here would probably be pretty dark. Okay, next row, wet it. Sure, if I got, it really has a curve down here too, doesn't it? It's almost like this part here is, I'm wetting all the bottom so that it's darker there. And then we can warm it up with the other color, the reddy purple. Okay. And then anywhere I see hard edges, I'm just going back with clean water. Softening them up out. I don't like this part here. Yeah, not really, but I think part of the problem is this part over here might need a bit more blue.
In the vase?
Yeah, in the vase. So see how this side of it has got quite a bit of blue on it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna try doing that, putting a bit more blue over on this side.
Oh, I see.
Maybe over here. Over on this one. Maybe even on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then I'm going to take my rubber brush and just take some white out. mainly in these areas. In the middle of the vase.
Okay.
I don't know. Well, just keep going and we'll see what it turns out. I forgot to put this line in here. I'm just using that first mix, the darker color, go along here. And then softening that out. I probably should. Some blue over there. Some blue back. I don't think that goes out in far enough. This part here. Going along the base and doing the same thing, softening it out. We could even have a bit of a shadow on this side if we wanted to. Assuming this is a table that isn't clear. It always helps ground it as well. Bleed it out. It's not white the same. But let's leave it for a minute, and once we get the darks in, we can decide whether that's going to work.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's almost 3 o'clock. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Time. But I think this might not be a bad spot to stop, because once this is all dry, we'll start doing the Louise Damasci method where we wet the individual leaf and then we paint in the dark areas on that.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yep.
So Zoom worked. I'm so happy about that. How did it, does anyone want to show their progress so far?
Here you go.
Oh, nice, Sonia.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I
Um,
wasn't ready for this, so I was watching, doing some paint things, so I have to
Okay,
go do it myself now.
okay, all right. Anyone else wanna, oh, Charlene, here we go.
Oops. See it.
Oh, there.
Oh,
Okay.
there- yes.
Oh, very nice.
Very nice. Yeah.
Your vase turned out great.
Yeah, it has a nice structure. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, thank you, ladies. And I
Oh.
will stop the recording